There's a recent stat that stopped me mid scroll, which is about women in the workforce and how we're not just stalling, but we're actually moving backwards. The funding, the focus, the structural support that was supposed to carry us forward, it's quietly losing momentum. And I think a lot of us feel that, even if we can't name it yet. Which is why this conversation felt so necessary. My guest today, Jaime, is someone I got to watch from the inside as a fellow alumna before she did something a lot of people think about, but very few actually do. She left a leadership role at a company she helped grow and started her own thing. Coaching women in leadership, building programs, creating spaces for women to figure out not just how to climb, but whether the ladder is on the right wall. Jaime, welcome to Without Permission.
Oh, I love that introduction. Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here.
I talked about this in the backdrop, but we're seeing some of the metrics that are most important slide back. Women in tech, women in leadership. The data is not going in the direction we want or we hoped. And the grounds of this is something that's been brewing for a while. And you and I both come from tech, and I know we both feel it, albeit in our different experiences and ways. When you look at women in the workforce today, what do you actually see?
I've had the benefit over the last couple years of really investing in myself and learning about my own patterns, where those patterns developed, which wide majority are childhood. And I've learned that, what got me to where I was in leadership wasn't going to get me to the next level. Now, with that context, when I talk to peers, whether in tech or other industries like healthcare and finance and legal, when I talk to clients, when I talk to the communities that I'm in, they're, in most cases, when we're talking about high performing women that have excelled in school, excelled in their profession, they're very career minded. What I'm seeing and hearing is just a lot of exhaustion and frustration and realization that like all these things that used to work for me don't work anymore. A lot of acknowledgement that they've, somehow ended up taking on so much more than they expected, presumably much more than their male peers, but they're not getting ahead. And so there's kind of this, what's it for? Right. Was it worth it? Is it worth it? Where do I go from here?
Yeah.
So it's a lot of exhaustion, a lot of frustration, a lot of, I don't know if I want to keep doing this. And that's really disheartening because businesses need women's leadership. There's so much that we bring to the table. So that's where I'm looking to hopefully support and help ensure we get back in the right direction.
That's an astute observation. And it kind of leads me, I wanted to see what made you get into this space and want to help at this moment in time. What was that driver for you?
Yeah, so I tell people, like, I have hit extreme burnout 3 distinct times in my career. The first time was back in late 2018, early 2019. I'd been in the same organization for 13 years. I had sort of stalled out at the last 4 or 5 years in the same level of role. I watched, male peers advance, but wasn't seeing that path for myself. I was also dealing personally with moving. Every time we moved for my husband's job, I had responsibilities related to establishing our entire household. So selling our house, dealing with, finding a new house, dealing with the kids and their schedules and new doctors and new bills and, all the things, right? I didn't know what burnout was. I didn't think it was that. I was just like, I've outgrown this environment. It's the company, it's the culture, it's they don't respect or appreciate my value. It's time for me to move on. So I left, I started my own LLC. I did my own independent consulting for a little while. And then I was hired full-time into a like company. And then I did that for a couple years.
Yeah.
And then lo and behold, wherever you go, there you are. The same thing started to creep up. I was overwhelmed with all the responsibilities. And in a couple years, I left, went back to my LLC. And so fast forward to when this happened again, the third time, I was like, okay, wait a minute. I actually liked the culture. I liked the organization. I'm like, there's something else here. And that's when I had seen an ad for an organization called We Are the Women, and a program they had called Awaken, and Burnout for Good was essentially the message. And
just
so much of what was shared, well, I'm like, oh my God, it's like they're reading my mind. Like
right.
These are all the things.
Yeah.
And here I was, 47 years old. I wasn't mid-career, I was late career. I'd been a chief revenue officer, a VP. At the time, I was a senior director. Why am I just learning these tools and skills that this program is teaching? Like, these are not corporate training and development conversations. This is deeper. This was internal work. This was nervous system regulation. This was listening to your body, feeling your feelings. This was how to turn off your brain so you can sleep at night. So it was a mix of very much personal self-leadership, sustainable leadership skills, along with, corporate leadership development.
Right.
But I'm sitting here going, no one talks about this stuff.
No.
And it worked. I stayed with this organization and actually had the best year of my career, performance-wise and recognition-wise, while working less, while managing less stress. And so for me, it was, okay, I'd accomplished what I wanted to in my corporate world with my corporate hat on. There's this gap, Women in the Workplace report, and the data that you mentioned at the beginning in terms of women not pursuing or not being invested in and given opportunities for additional growth. And this is like a best kept secret. So for me, it was more of a passion of, I want to talk about this very openly, very transparently. I want to bring these tools and skills to more women. And I want women to stay in their jobs and continue to grow and climb and make the impact that we can make. So it was from that place.
That is more than enough context to want to do something like that. It was a sign when you saw that come across your vision. And I would love to also learn personally one of those pieces that you called out in terms of how do you just sleep at night and not overthink that. So we'll definitely come back to that.
Yeah.
You mentioned something when you were talking about your journey as well, which thank you for sharing. I really appreciate that. Is your family moved many times and you had to reset your life and career for yourself and your family. And it reminds me of something we talked about before in terms of the invisible load. Women absorb way more of that personal weight at home, and how when life gets heavy, the thing that gets sacrificed first is your career.
Yeah.
Where does career come in when you talk about what that looked like for you? And what made you decide to name it for what it is, if you did?
Yeah, well, that's an area of my life that I'd love to go back and have a redo on of, when these moves were happening. So in all three instances, my kids were younger and needed support, their school registration and doctors and all those things that come with it. Additionally, I was actually making more financially than my husband. So in my mind, my career was important to the family unit and to the financial contribution, and
practically, and yeah.
I wanted to invest in that. My husband, each move, it was a move up. So the last move was for his dream job. There's roles that historically, traditionally in our society that the husband and the wife play. I wish we had handled certain conversations and expectations differently. I wish I had been more open to help. I think that's a big thing that I coach women on now is I was raised like you don't ask, you do it, like you push through, you do it on your own, you make it happen, you handle it. Well, clearly my husband, he's got his dream job. Like there really wasn't the right conversations. It was more like these are societal expectations. This is the sacrifice the wife makes. But I do believe now that there is a way to have the life that you want, the career that you want, the harmony between the family dynamics and the career dynamics. Not saying it's easy, but there are options. The load is, I mean, it's a real thing. And I know many women feel very helpless.
Yeah. It's interesting because the foregone conclusion that any of these, what we call invisible load, administrative burden pieces come onto women. But even till recently, those gendered roles were true. Men were in the workplace, women took care of the home, and that has changed. But what we see inside a home hasn't changed to keep up with that overall movement. You didn't hit that point once or twice. You hit that point thrice where you took your step back and said, "Oh my God, I can't do this anymore. I can't do this plus this. Something has to give." When did you realize you could name it? And when did you realize it was burnout? You mentioned there was a point you didn't know what burnout was.
Yeah. So, when you are in this state of chronic stress, burnout, we tend to numb ourselves, right? So some people numb themselves through alcohol, through shopping, through extremes in any particular kind of habits that they have. And oftentimes it's a combination of things. Yeah. For me, it was scrolling and social, just mindless. You're exhausted after your long day of work and, getting dinner on the table. And so, 8, 9 o'clock at night, you're just scrolling, right? And this woman started talking to me, describing like, hey, is this you succeeded in your career, but you feel unfulfilled? Like this, you got to the top and it's not what you expected. And you are resentful of choices or what's going on in the home. Your relationships aren't good. You feel guilty about not spending the right time with your, like all these, again, these symptoms. She was describing my hell. Yeah. Like all the things I was struggling with that I hadn't necessarily admitted, but I knew wasn't right. And so honestly, it was like, hey, if this sounds like you, put a word in the comments and we'll send you a link to a free webinar to give you the framework for overcoming this. And so I did it, which is wild. And which just tells you how desperate and how much I was looking for an answer and connection. And you have to get to that point, right? You have to get to the point of being willing to look inward and help yourself. And so I went to the webinar, and again, it was more around this framework of, the mind, the body, the spirit. And it talked about perfectionism, people pleasing, and overfunctioning, the 3 most common pitfalls of high-performing women. And I'm like, holy cow, I have all 3 of those, which is common, but I never had heard them named. And so all of a sudden now we're putting names, and it's like, oh, by the way, I'm not alone. This program has helped thousands of women, and I start reading their stories. And then it's, if this resonates with you, schedule a breakthrough call. I did that. And so I just kept trusting. You get these breadcrumbs, you get these, like, I don't know why I clicked on the link. I don't know why I went to the webinar. I don't know why I scheduled the call, except I was so desperate to get out of the place that I was in. I don't ask for help. I figure things out. I'm a fixer. I'm a solver. And I couldn't fix my own life.
Right.
And I needed help. So I found it, thank goodness. It was a 12-week program, sat alongside my work, and there was accountability, there was support, there was community. And it really did. I tell people all the time, it saved me. It changed my life.
Wow. That's actually incredible. What I think surprises me as well a bit is the work is more internal. And I find that a lot of times when even my friends in different jobs that they're in, when they feel like they're behind in some ways, even maybe just in their brain, they try to do more, right? They try to work more, they try to get more things done, and we also internalize things a bit more. And so you feel like it's something that you can just fix rather than really doing the internal work that you're speaking, which is actually long term and self-sustaining self-care.
Yeah, I was 47. I'd gotten this far just fine on my own, right? I don't need help. I can, figure this out. And, it's coming from that fear of, okay, if I have to look inward, I did not like the person I'd become.
Right.
I did not like snapping at my kids. I did not like being short with my husband. I did not like that I was scrolling instead of going out and socializing. I didn't want to face any of that, but this just couldn't be my life. Like, why are we working so hard to make this money if we can't enjoy our life? What good is it to have this title and this salary and be miserable?
That is so true. And it's a bit self-fulfilling. And so it's breaking the vicious cycle to make it a bit virtuous. I'm talking to a clearly high-achieving woman here. What does it take for other women like you out there to unlearn what those habits have got them? You mentioned earlier, and I love that phrase, what got you here won't get you there.
Yeah.
What does that take? What's the hardest thing for women who are ambitious to unlearn?
It's the inner critic and this fear. We all have our own stories and experiences, but if you trace back, most high achieving women, we develop these perfectionism, people pleasing, over functioning patterns because somewhere in our childhoods, most of this stuff is learned by the age of 8, in order to get love, safety, and belonging, right? So if I get all A's and I help mom with the cleaning and I'm a good girl when we're over at grandma and grandpa's and I stay quiet, then I will be loved. Then I will feel safe, right? And I've found through the community that I'm in, there's generally certain truths and elements and flavors of that in these stories. First, being willing to explore that and accept it. If I'm a high achieving, part of the reason why I even accepted this program is because I loved how they explained the science behind a lot of it too, like how the nervous system works, right. Being stuck in chronic dysregulation and what that means, and then hearing other women's stories. It's not me. I'm not alone. I'm not broken. I can explain this. And so the logical side of me was like, okay, this makes sense. Okay. And if I can explain it and I can understand it, then I can fix it. Okay. What are the tools, skills? Just tell me the steps to follow to fix it. Now the catch is, as a high performing woman, if you just tell me do these 5 things, if I've got the inner critic in my head going, challenging these 5 things that I'm doing, like, oh no, that looks wrong, or, don't do this, or go faster. Like, again, all these patterns, I'm going to get stuck. And so the community, the support, like having accountability. So whether working with a coach or being in a community support-based type of program, like that, for me as a high-performing woman, was the key, because I couldn't fake it. I couldn't just push through and try and check the boxes and say, oh, it didn't work for me. I had to be accountable. I had to show up. And one thing high performers are really good at is, well, if I'm going to show up, I'm going to do the best I can possibly do, because I don't want to look bad. So I think the structure is really important when you're first kind of trying to unlearn these things, is, you know, have that support to keep reminding yourself, to talk back that inner critic that this is quote unquote normal. Like this isn't something wrong with me. There's no judgment, making sure you are doing the work and being patient and kind in some of that.
Yeah. So it's identifying it.
Mm-hmm.
It's accepting your potential to change it,
mm-hmm.
and being willing to unlearn it.
Yeah.
Talking about data points, there was this one where I saw women, they don't apply to job opportunities if they don't meet 100% of the qualifications. Whereas you might find a man going in and saying, oh, I made about half of them, I'm going to put my hat in the ring. And we self-select out before anyone else can do that for us. And that's the opposite of what we're trying to do with that perfectionism. So absolutely, I love the journey that you're taking us through here.
Well, some of that too is just we're such rule followers. So like, oh, the job description says minimum requirements, this, and this.
Yeah.
So, oh, I don't hit all those, so I'm not going to apply, because why would I want to? I don't want to burden them. I don't want them to have to take time talking to me. Like we overthink all of these scenarios.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I wonder if that goes hand in hand with the childhood you talked about. If I do these things, I will get these things. Let's just put my head down and get things done. Yeah, absolutely. I want to name something, and you and I connected on this before, on radical candor.
Mm-hmm.
I love that you mentioned that, because I try to look at that as a North Star when I'm trying to do something difficult, and trying to see where that lies in balancing out areas of our lives. And women are nothing if not great balancing acts in our lives, right? What does radical candor mean to you when we talk about not having enough women representation in leadership roles? Not saying that women are be our end all, but right now that doesn't look equal, and the behaviors that are rewarded versus not in the workplace today.
Yeah. So for me, it's right. So it's this cross section of assertiveness and kindness. There's another book I like to quote in combination with radical candor. It's called Likeable Badass. And Likeable Badass is definitely the title of the book. And actually, there's a third one I'm reading now that I'm finding this trifecta combination, and it's Machiavelli for women.
I can put that in the description for people.
Yeah, one of the main themes coming through in all of these cases is status and respect, patriarchy, societal norms, history.
Right.
Okay. Men inherently have status out of the gate. Women do not, especially in certain environments, male-dominated corporate world like tech. The woman's role traditionally is to be sweet, kind, bubbly, entertaining, support, serve, help. But if you're just kind and you're not assertive, you don't have respect or status, which those three things, those are kind of all encompassing, then great, you can be in our club, you can be around, you can hang out here, but you're not going to rise. There's been certainly periods where, okay, well, I need to be respected. Here are these male leaders, and they're loud and they're use harsh language and they're direct. And so, they're assertive and they're respected. So I'm gonna emulate that because that must be the key. When women do that, it's like, whoa, wait a minute here. Like, that's not how I expect you to show up. So now instead of that having the same outcome of, wow, she's assertive and direct, she's got status, we should respect her. Now it's like, oh, she's a bitch. Right. She's with her. Like she's toxic. There are some double standards there. Radical candor, I think, frames this really well. There is a happy marriage between balancing your assertiveness and your kindness, where you're being authentic. You can't build trust without authenticity. People can see through that. So if you're showing up as your authentic self, if you're building trust, if you're genuinely, and these are skills that women like, empathetic, right? Emotional intent, like these are more feminine energy type things. If I can show up in these ways and I have self-trust and confidence, I can deliver direct and be assertive in a way that is not coming off as threatening, unacceptable for a woman to show up. And so that's really the balance you have to strike.
It's that integration of ultimately have impact without being overbearing or almost like a pushover.
Yeah.
I'm listening to this. And where did you learn that? Was it part of that course? And did you see it modeled around you at any point in time?
So my overall journey is a bit unique in that I grew up very much so on the golf course, which is a very male-dominated sport traditionally. I played on an all-boys team in high school. I was the first and only woman on the men's golf team. And then I went on to play in college. And then after college, the men's league at the country club, because that was the level of play. Like, I didn't want to play with the women. I was more at the skill level of the men. And so I played with the men. So I grew up around rich white men.
Yeah.
And so that modeled for me confidence, and this is all strategy and a game. That's what it is. And so I was able to pass go in certain points in my career where I was called too aggressive.
Right.
I was told to tone it down. I was told to be less direct. And at one point the company did hire an executive coach for me, because these behaviors were fine until I got into a certain level of visibility where there were a lot less women around. And it was like, now I was a threat. Right. And this like, well, wait a minute, like she can't show up here that way, even if it was modeled the same way. I would say this was probably around somewhere middle of my career of working with this executive coach it was a woman, thankfully. And, she was like, listen, it's not fair. It's not fair, but this is the way the game works. And here are the tools you can use. And a lot of it was ways to choose strategically what I would go to battle for.
It almost reminds me of sometimes just forgetting who you are when you're in a larger group, and so you start to imbibe the qualities, and then maybe at some points getting jolted awake, right? With what's acceptable or not there.
Yeah. Well, and I want to name that data supports that for women of color and Hispanic women, it's significantly worse, in their ability to show up in these environments.
It's hierarchy that someone decided they wanted to create, and it clearly falls down that. It reminds me of the Billie Jean King quote where said, girls are taught to be perfect and boys are taught to be brave.
Yes.
And that's clearly stayed with you too, and in the context of your own story as well.
Absolutely. It's what I learned early on. If I wanted attention, like I had to outperform, I had to outshine, I had to do all the things. And we all wanted to, like, we like attention. And so that perfection was really important. Now, she also goes on and talks about the importance of sports to teach women to be brave, to balance that out in the role of sport. I played 5 different sports in middle school, 3 in high school, 1 in college. So I very much agree that it's the role that athletics and sports play in building a girl's strength and confidence is so important.
That's the interpersonal dynamics. I can totally see. That's such a big part of it. One of the things that we talked about in knowing that you're capable, and we know a lot of women mutually as well who are really capable, and knowing that you're aligned to something and driving your energy towards that. Right? You've written a lot about this, the difference between capability and what really is the right place for you to be successful in. Where does that insight come for you personally, and how does that cascade to everyone whose capabilities are probably different?
Yeah. If we're striving for perfection, if we're people pleasers, if we feel valued and worthy and tie our identity to doing a good job and getting external validation. Oftentimes then in our careers, we get on a path where, for me, it was, hey, you're really good at project management. You're good at process improvement. You're really good at organization, right? And so you get more responsibilities in those areas. And then those are the things that you get promoted for. And then when there's a new opportunity, hey, you're the go-to, you're the subject matter expert. And so you don't ever pause and be like, do I still like to do this?
Right.
You're just told you're good at it. You're told it's needed. You get rewarded and it's great. So you just go down that path.
Yeah.
I found personally, and I think it contributed in all 3 of these cases of burnout that I had, it came down to, I never really paused to think, what do I like? What fills my cup? At one point in time, there were certain aspects of these areas that I enjoyed problem solving. I've always loved problem solving. Take things apart, put them back together, being creative. Over time, as I climbed the ladder, though, you're not doing that all the time, right? Other things come into play. And so, the big thing I talk about with women is, first of all, early in career, try lots of different things, explore, really understand what you do like, what you don't like. The goal is to find the intersection of what you're good at and what fills your cup, what energizes you. Listen, I love to sing and dance. I'm not good at it, right? So that is not my intersection, right? It might give me energy. I could go all night, but no one's going to pay me for that, right? We have to recognize as we go through life and our careers, there are different seasons. And what worked in my 20s, what worked in my 30s, I'm now going into my 50s. Things change.
Right.
What gives us energy changes. Our purpose may stay steady. It should stay steady, but the passions that align to that purpose, those are going to evolve. And we need to be open and willing and comfortable evolving with them. And if we're just heads down, pushing through, doing, using external validation as our only measure of success, we're going to hit that wall and we're going to sit there going, this isn't what I thought it would be like. I don't recognize this life. I don't think this is what I want to do.
Yeah.
I don't even know what it is I want to do.
Yeah, I think this is true for everyone. It's scary to take your hands off as you go higher, kind of let that be a little further from what you do because you have to. And it's also scary to think that your alignment could be completely different from where you are today.
Yeah.
But I think
you're a different person, right? Think of all the experiences you have in a given year, let alone decade, that has shaped you. And thank God I'm not still the same person I was in my 20s. I can't expect to have the same, interests.
Yeah. What's almost scarier is what you described, kind of landing somewhere and then looking around and wondering, how did I get here? This is not exactly the destination that I'm enjoying right now. I thought I would maybe, but it's a really good core question. Talking about core questions, we've come to the home theme of this back down here, which is what it means to build something on your own terms. what would you tell women who are still waiting for permission to get into that next step, to fill in their own shoes?
Mm-hmm.
And what do you know now that you wish you'd known earlier?
Yeah. So there's a lot of glamorization right now around entrepreneurship,
Yeah.
around building your own business, around, hustling and side hustles and all of that.
Yeah.
So the one thing I will preface and caution is, like, it is not easy to build a business,
Right.
nor does it happen fast. So one of the things that I teach is the AAA framework, which is awareness. So awareness of where I am right now. What is my body telling me? What are the feelings I'm having? What's going on? Like, just awareness without judgment, just awareness. Where am I right now? Acceptance. Like, I may not love this situation, but this is where I am. These are the things I control. These are the things I don't control. And then I can look at what my options are and take action with clarity and an informed, responsive way versus just reacting. And so the first 2 times I hit burnout, I reacted and I left, right? And I ended up okay, except wherever I am there, I took my problems with me, right? So I just perpetuated and delayed the process. So all this to say, like, building and creating is amazing. There are other ways to fulfill those needs or desires that don't necessarily require you just up and leaving your job.
Yeah.
The thing that I did really intentionally this time is I understood our finances. Money is an important topic. Most of us work for money to be able to do things in our lives.
Right.
And so assessing, like, how much do I need to make?
Right.
How long do I have until I need to start making that? What are some other sacrifices? Is my partner or family unit, are we okay with that? Eyes wide open, right? I encourage exploring and testing while you have a job.
Mm-hmm.
And I've heard a number of women say, well, how do I do both? You have to do the inner work first of boundaries and recognizing when that perfectionist and, when are you doing too much? Easily, you can do both.
Yeah.
If you really want it, you may be able to fulfill it through volunteer work or through even something within your company that you haven't thought of. So I really encourage exploring and sitting in that awareness and acceptance for a bit of time, talking to other people who have walked those shoes, knowing what it looked like for them. You can build a full business, or you can advise, or you can do independent, like, there's just so many ways to go about whatever it is that you're looking for. Yeah. But the key really is knowing, even I'd done the financial work and I got to a point a few months in where I was like, oh my God, what did I do? We're not going to have enough money for this. My kid's going to college. Like, what about this? This isn't as easy as I thought. I only have 3 clients and all the things, right? And the inner critic was just going wild. And my coach was like, okay, did you talk to a financial advisor before you made this decision? Yes. And what did your financial advisor tell you? How long until you needed to make X amount of dollars? A couple years. Here, 3 months in. Why am I freaking out? But you will freak out.
Yeah. Well, the perfectionist in us, I guess, is always rearing its head. That's like, here we talk about taking that leap of faith, but it's not just doing it blindly and jumping off a rooftop. I love the framework. It's such a simple way to consider some really important pieces and some really practical ways to take that next step and potentially kind of gradually roll it. But it's still giving yourself that ability to do that. So awareness, acceptance, and action. Amazing. Yeah. Is there anything that you would love to tell people who are listening? And regardless, I'd love to have you again as well. So much.
No, this was a lovely conversation. I appreciate the opportunity. And This is going to sound like a total shameless plug, but I will say evaluate a coach. So a leader is not a coach. A leader has their own personal needs, priorities, motivation, right? They're certainly good for certain advice, but they don't have your best interest first and foremost. Right. Similarly with a mentor, like a mentor within your organization or even a mentor within your network, there's not the same level of accountability or motivation. I try to identify someone that's a good fit for your needs or your experiences or the direction, but women are notoriously bad at investing in themselves. Again, we'll figure it out. I know what I need to do. I can make this happen, right? But there's something about having an individual who can hold you accountable, who is going to call you on your BS, who is going to be a mirror for you, and not let you get off easy. I spent a significant amount through these 3 programs that I've been in. And actually now I'm in my 4th program. So I still am working with a coach. The ROI for me has been multifaceted, but just that support, that reassurance, someone to hold me accountable, and because usually we're the ones in our own way.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. We could talk about that for half an hour because that is
yes, absolutely. I would encourage exploring that option, being open to having someone support you and make it easy on yourself, that you'll get to where you want much quicker.
I love that. And with accountability, you got all of the A-type personalities perked up and listening because I definitely did. I know somebody in common who's been working with you and you've supported them, and I have not seen them as excited and focused on the future and clear as ever. So definitely a great way to go forward. Well, thank you so much, Jaime. Thanks for being on here. And I'm hoping to have you again and continue conversations.
Great. Well, thank you.
Thanks so much.